Hi, today we're going to be looking at Lesson 20E, Cumulative Frequency Graphs. The goal for today's lesson is to learn about and become an expert in cumulative frequency graphs. So sometimes when you get data, it's important to see proportions, or you want to find proportions of data that lie above or below certain values. So in that case, what we would do is when we have our frequency tables, we would construct a cumulative frequency distribution table, and then from there draw a cumulative frequency graph to represent that data. And the points that are plotted basically end up looking like an S-curve. They're joined by a smooth curve, which I'll demonstrate in a moment. And this is just the typical type of cumulative frequency graph. There's another type of graph called an Ogive, which is very, very similar, except that the points are connected by line segments. But we're going to be connecting this, we're drawing a smooth curve through the points. So when we deal with cumulative frequency graphs, we're going to be dealing with percentiles. And just as a reminder, percentile is a score which a certain percentage of the data lies at or below. We're going to be looking at the lower quartile. That'll be useful for us to know. That's the 25th percentile. The median, which is the second quartile, that's the 50th percentile, meaning that 50% of the data is below that value. The upper quartile, or Q3, is the 75th percentile, meaning that 75% of the data is at or below that value. Percentiles are always expressed as whole numbers that are rounded down. So if you had, for example, say 53.7%, that would be the 53rd percentile. So we don't need to round up from there, we always have to round down. Okay, let's take a look at a quick example. So in this example, we're going to be looking at the lifetime of light bulbs. So we've got the column on this frequency table given the life in number of hours of light bulbs. So 0 less than or equal to the length of time, less than 500. Then 500 less than or equal to the length of time, less than 1,000. 1,000 less than or equal to the length of time, less than 2,000, etc., up to 5,000. So notice that the lower end is the part that's less than or equal to, and the upper end is just the less than part. Okay, so that's going to be important. So the left end of every interval will be starting at that specific value. So we've got the number of light bulbs. We're going to be also filling in the cumulative frequency. So the number of light bulbs that last between 0 and 500 hours is 5. So the cumulative frequency up to that point is 5. The number of light bulbs that last between 500 and 1,000 hours is 17, which means that the number of light bulbs that last from 0 to 1,000 or less than 1,000 hours is going to be 22. Then there are 46 light bulbs, as you can see here, that last between 1,000 and 2,000 hours. Therefore, the number of light bulbs that last less than 2,000 hours altogether is going to be 68. Okay, because we're going to be adding 22 and 46. So 22 light bulbs last less than 1,000 hours. Then these 46 last between 1,000 and 2,000. So the total that lasts less than 2,000, that is between 0 and 500, between 500 and 1,000, or between 1,000 and 2,000, is going to be 68. Then the number of light bulbs that last between 2,000 and 3,000 hours is 79, which means that the total number of light bulbs that last less than 3,000 hours is going to be 68 plus 79, which is 147. Then there are 27 light bulbs that last between 3,000 and 4,000 hours. Therefore, we add 147 light bulbs to the 27 to get 174 light bulbs that last less than 4,000 hours. and then the total number of light bulbs that last less than 5,000 hours altogether is 178. Okay, so let's construct a cumulative frequency graph to show this data. So notice that on the left side, on the vertical axis, I've got the cumulative frequency starting at 0 and going up by tens up to 180. And along the bottom I've got the number of hours starting at 0 up to 500, then 1,000, then 2,000, 3,000, following the rows in the table. So what we're going to do is we're going to plot the values that correspond here. So it's going to start here in the vertex, or the origin. That's where the graph will actually start. So between 0 and 500, we know that there are 5 light bulbs, and so right at the 500 mark I'm going to put in the 5 there, because there are 5 light bulbs that have a life less than or equal to 500. And then we know between 500 and 1,000 there are 17 light bulbs, so less than 1,000 is 22. So I'm going to go over here and estimate where 22 is, and then that's 22 that have a life of less than 1,000. Then between 1,000 and 2,000 there's 46, which means that less than 2,000 there's going to be 68. So I'll estimate where 68 is. And then between 2,000 and 3,000 there are 79, so that means less than 3,000 is going to be 147. So I'll estimate where that 147 is. I think right here ish. And then between 3,000 and 4,000 there are 27, which means that less than 4,000 there are 174 light bulbs. And so I'll put that around here. And then less than 5,000 there's another 4, between 4,000 and 5,000, so another 4 we go there. Okay, and then from there, once we have all these points plotted, we're just going to draw a nice smooth curve through the points as best we can. And so you'll see that this is supposed to be a smooth curve, not line segments between each point. And so that is the cumulative frequency graph. And then from there we can figure out, well, there's 178 light bulbs altogether, so half of that would be 89. So I'm going to put right around here, that's the 50th percentile, which means that's the median. And then for 25% of the total, or the first quartile, the lower quartile, we've got 44.5, so that would be around here, but we ran that down to 44, so that's going to be about here. So that's the 25th percentile here, and then the 75th is 133.5, which would be about here, which we ran down to 133. So that's 133.5 rounded down to 133. This is 89, and this is 44.5 rounded down to 44. Okay, so there's a couple other things that we can do with this, but we'll wait to go through a few examples in class tomorrow. In the meantime, please take a look at example 11 on page 527. And then if you want to start, you can maybe start practicing your skills a little bit using these questions right here. But you don't have to do all of them, of course, because we're going to be answering questions and looking at some examples together as a group tomorrow in class. So that is a quick overview of cumulative frequency graphs. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in class.